So when you do go out and learn a really good hand art that's hand strikes, it's going to shut people down in a good way. And you're going to learn different angles of strikes. Different arts have different angles. It's great to combine those angles. Um, Eskrima, I study Eskrima and Kempo. So Eskrima has their certain angles with the stick. Um, they overlap with other things, and there's some angles that they don't approach, like Kempo does, because Kempo's a more of a Chinese, Japanese art, depending upon what part of lineage that you go to. My style is more Shaolin Kempo, so we're more influenced by the Chinese aspect of it. So you get then I've taken my hand stuff and I put a stick in my hand and I've taken the Eskrima idea and go, okay, well, what if I use a stick in my hand or a knife in my hand? And now I go through all my basics with that stick or knife. Now, how is it going to, it's definitely going to change some things. It's going to change the strike because of the essence of the weapon. You have a longer target. You're going to have to extend the arm longer for a stick. A knife is still kind of in tight. You don't really extend too much with the knife. Um,
Would you say, just from like an interesting mechanics point for weapons, um, I'm trying to figure out the best way to describe it, but in like a stick situation, it almost has like a whipping effect where you want all that power to kind of end out towards the end of the weapon. So obviously, the heavier, the more blunt of an object, it's going to be more of a power swing. But with a standard like stick, you do want to get that full extension of the arm to transfer all that power through to the end of the weapon, or is that not?
that no, that's a good point. So with so if you let's take the stick, normal like a serrata stick, you your stick depends upon your arm length. You have a custom size stick. Now, if you go with a Sinawali type stick or a Montalongo type of stick, they're a little bit longer. So they're like 24 inches. But I noticed for myself when I was making the transition that the Kempo stuff, we kind of try to stay in tight and we pull back. We'll follow through with the strike. With the weapon, um, the it's the arc that you're coming down on. So one of the common ones, say angle one for a screamer, is down at a 45. Okay, and then the reverse, the angle two is the backhand at a 45. So you're making that X, and that goes across a lot of different weapons. Okay, so those are your basic strikes. So, but in that strike, you have a hammer strike. So you have the point. So I can strike you with the point. If I'm in tight and I don't have that. But definitely the arc of the weapon is where the strong point is. So, and if you're doing any kind of empty handed technique against a weapon, you definitely want to stop that arc because you're stopping the power from magnifying.
Yeah, we always referred to that as like the danger donut. You have that inside and outside, but if you're in that sweet spot, that's where you're gonna get hurt. So you want to either be outside the strike or so close inside that even if it does hit you, it's more gonna be his hand or something like that. That probably isn't gonna feel good, but you're not getting the full power of that weapon, so you're kind of negating a lot of it.
Right, right. I mean, plus two. I mean, if it's again, we talked about force magnifiers. If you're hitting with the point of that weapon, you go back to that hammer strike. If I'm close, I'm inside or I block your view, man, I'm throwing that. And then you got the point of the weapon on that. And now I'm gonna hit and follow through. I'm gonna cut. Because maybe I don't have, maybe it's not a stick. Maybe it's a machete. Maybe it's some other type of short sword or long knife where you're gonna use the butt of that weapon, strike and cut. That's pretty brutal.
Yeah, that's the one thing I liked about the karambit to kind of shift over. It's got the ring on it, so whichever way you hold it, you kind of have a hard point on either your pinky, and then you have the blade up top, or reverse, you have the hard point on your pointer finger, and then the blade out the bottom. So that was, along with a bunch of other things, that was one of the things I always liked, is that you do have a nice hard target on that to essentially protect your hand, but it's a force multiplier whichever way you need to attack with it.
Right, right. I mean, I think with a karambit, you're going to be doing more slicing. I mean, stabbing with that curved blade, it's going to be so hard to pull that back out. You're not going to you stab somebody with a karambit, try to pull it out because it's already like a claw. I mean, just you're not pulling that. Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying you can't,
Yeah.
but I'm saying that it's going to reduce your chance of success just to pull it back out.
It's like, yeah, I mean, on an extreme angle, it's like trying to pull a fish hook out, really. But
Yeah,
it does depend on the length of the blade. Like I have one that's got probably like a 3-inch blade on it, so it is more of like a. It's basically like it's not straight, but it's a semi straighter blade. But yeah, I mean, mostly you're going to be doing the quick cuts, like the quick angles with it, coming across different stuff like that. Um, yeah, I mean that's like I said, one of my favorites. But going back to like larger weapons, something like if you have like a K-bar knife or something along that size, that's where you're gonna have that hammer
yeah. And
fist.
how many people are really like carrying that?
Right, not a lot.
Because I mean, maybe if you're in the South and you have a blade on your belt or something, it's probably not going to be a fixed,
Yeah, most people have the
handle blade.
foldables these days.
It's going
Yeah,
to be foldable, So, I mean, I'm not saying don't have a knife. I mean,
I carry one every day.
but yeah, I mean, it's a good thing to have for a lot of different reasons. And so what I did is I'm learning. It took all these screaming strikes. Okay, cool, cool. Now I'm going to take the stick, and I'm going to apply it to all my Kempo stuff. So, I'm a third degree black belt Kempo, got a lot of background in Kempo, I got a lot of knowledge in Kempo. So, what happens to my techniques? How do they change? Some of them change a little bit with the stick because maybe I got more distance, or I use the length of the stick and give myself room to get out,
Right.
or I'm being more brutal with the strikes. So then I play around with that. I play around with blocks and counter strikes, which is another discussion. Is you take a block and then you have an automatic counter strike from the same hand or opposite hand. So if you have the stick in there, how does that change that? That gets you that fast hand speed. Um, and that's also too when you put a stick in your hand, you're gonna. I always develop in forearm development, you know, because of the different open hand strikes that I use. But with the stick, man, you got to keep a hold of that thing. My forearm development's gone off the chain since I've been doing sticks, because you got to hold on to that thing. If you don't have a good grip on that thing's
Oh,
flying into the wall.
yep.
Instructors really don't like that. So and then as you get longer weapons that are heavier, you have to have more forearm development to keep a hold of it. And going into the swords. I mean, there's so many different places you can elevate it to. So if you do study an art, take the stick and put it through, do it with your forms, because now you're in a program fight. What kind of different strikes can I do? How can I change this basic form and take the stick? And how can I hit differently and go through it? And it revitalizes a lot of this old material you have that some people kind of abandon, but don't do that. Make it exciting. Like, oh yeah, I'm tired of doing pinion one, which everybody has. We've talked about that before. Block, strike, block, in that I form. Well, take the stick. Do it with the stick now. Then play with different angles of the stick on that form. Then it's like, wow, now I got like 3 different things I'm doing with this. Now I'm going to add strikes. I'm going to add kicks. I'm going to do different things and make it, put that part of your core. So now you're used to using a weapon in some way or another. and
And
you
that
can take it.
transfers to any, because I know every time I hear, like, I'll have a conversation with someone and someone will be like, oh, a stick, who's ever carrying a stick? But I'm like, yeah, but it transfers to like weapons of opportunity. So as anything that is that size, it will transfer to. And one of the things I really do like, but they do make them illegal in some states, is that retractable baton, where it's, it's maybe 6 8 inches and you just fling it out there, and it's a hard, really hard object that gets you probably 18 inches. They're just good because and when you were talking earlier, I like, I mean, it's a really dick move, but if someone's putting their hands up and you have a baton, whack them right in the hands. It sucks. It hurts, and you can break their hands, and that might stop the fight right there. Like if they're like they want to go and you pull it out, whip them right in the knuckles or something like that. I mean, they might back down right away because that does not feel good.
Well, yeah, I mean, if you hit them in the radial nerve, I mean, you could break an arm, you could break hands. There's a lot of bones in the hand. I want to. It's good that you kind of brought those up because I was working with a student who I'm not going to name, um, that or a former student that got into a situation and they were concerned about homeless person that was harassing them. They didn't have a weapon with them, so they decided for to get one of those batons. Okay, they didn't. They maybe studied up to like purple belt or something, but so they were out of it. They weren't really conditioned. They didn't have the tactical knowledge that I have. And they said, "Hey, could you come over and help me, like learn how to use it?" And I approached it as, "Okay, yeah, we're going to start from the basics. We're going to start from the bottom, and we're going to go up from there." And I said to them, I said, "It's just like a gun. If you pull out that baton and extend it, it's not a threat weapon. You better be willing to use it, because if you don't use it, that person might take it away from you, and now you're in bigger trouble." So I want to put that in context for people. If you pull out a weapon, don't use it to intimidate somebody. You better be willing to use it.
The one, and this is an interesting point that I just found out when I took the use of force class, is apparently, at least in the state of New Jersey, I will say, there's a thing called authoritative, I forget what it's called. It's the first tier, but basically, it's not illegal. Now, again, this is very situational, but say if someone's coming down on you and you draw that weapon and point it at them and you say, you need to leave right now, and they leave, like that is an effective way to use that. Now, that's with the caveat, like you said, like, all right, if they don't leave, you better use it because they said, don't ever fire. And this is kind of going down a little bit of a rabbit hole, but like, don't fire a warning shot for X, Y, and Z. But like, if you point it at them and you say you need to leave right now and they leave, then that's acceptable. Same thing with like a baton. You whip it out and you say like, this is your one chance to not, like, obviously, but just, you need to leave right now. Give them that authoritative, I forget what it's called. I have to look it up. But like you said, if they're not going to back down after saying that, then you shouldn't be afraid to use this because it's gotten to that point.
You're moving along with that. I think that if you're in a self-defense situation, somebody keeps pushing it. And we've talked about situational awareness. I know we've put that podcast up yet. We may be revisiting that subject to try to refine it a little bit before we go back into that. Is you can avoid a lot of this stuff. Let's definitely put that out there. If you assess what's going on, you keep your head on a swivel. You're not appearing as a victim. You're not appearing weak. You recognize somebody. You say, "Hey, I see you there. What's up?" That is shortcut it. So all these things happen way before we get into having to draw a weapon, having to get in a self-defense situation. I want to preface all this stuff with that.
Absolutely, yeah.
So, you could go into a fire station, police station, post office. I mean, go anywhere that there's a lot of people or there's security. I mean, what's one of the best places you could go if you're walking by it? Find it, jewelry store. People don't think about that because a lot of jewelry stores have armed guards,
That's true.
or they could lock you in the vestibule, or something, because they're controlling who's coming in and out of the store.
True. Yeah.
Brilliant.
That, yeah, I've never thought of that. That's a really really good point.
Yeah. So, anything like that. Anywhere there's people that, where there's men that are going to stand up to evil. I'm not saying women can't stand up to evil. You guys can do that as well, but that's what it comes down to. You know,
Yeah, that I mean, with the preface of this is all it's gotten to this point. Yeah, or, we're past A through C, we're on part D where it's like, okay, now we're engaging the threat because we have to. That's yeah.
yeah, and unfortunately, that's what it's coming to in our major cities.
Yeah. Oh
You
yeah.
know, you have that poor guy, ex retired Marine in New York, 24 years old. They had a gentleman that was on the subway that had a history. He was arrested 42 times for hitting people. He was on the subway hitting people. So that he wasn't the only person to detain them. There was another few people that were a part of that have not been brought into public or anything. And the guy just surrendered today. To put this in context, it's the 12th of May, 23, and he just surrendered to police today. And he put him in a chokehold. He was laying on his back, holding the guy. I mean, he had no intention in, you know, hurting the guy. He was trying to prevent him from hurting some other people.
Right. I guess not to go on a tangent on this a little bit, but I did have a conversation with someone where they're like, well, you could have just let it go. You could have let him up. And I'm like, and this is a person that didn't train at all. So it was kind of like, it's hard to portray, but I'm like, you just can't. Like, if this dude is an active threat, you have him in a hold, say he's in a chokehold, he's still squirming. To me, in a person that is trained, if someone's still squirming, I don't have the choke on right. It's not something is going wrong to where it's just not working, because a proper chokehold will, and we can get down the whole rabbit hole of chokehold versus stranglehold, but like they go out and they're asleep. That's the end of it. Like, if they're not asleep, then it's kind of like, hey, I'm doing something wrong. I should readjust, maybe do it harder. Like, it's the fight is still on. So for someone to just say like, oh, just let them up, and like, I'm no, like, if I let you out, I'm in a bad position because in that situation he has them in a rear naked choke. So if I was to just let him go, I'm in a terrible position. Like, that is not a
Yeah, you're laying on your back.
right.
But also, too, I think that there's misinformation because, yes, we call it a rear naked choke. It's not a choke.
Right.
You're cutting off the blood supply. It's a sanguination, is what it really is.
Exactly.
So you're preventing blood flow from flowing, and that causes the person to pass out because they're not getting the nutrients from the blood into their system. So yes, in a way, you are restricting. You're restricting oxygen by not allowing blood flow.
Right.
You agree with that? So, a stranglehold, you're just taking their breath away. And
Right.
anybody that trained on the ground, they know the difference. Maybe not the guy that's first coming in,
Right.
but then it's like, hey man, you don't have that right. You know, you're taking their air, but we're not taking their air
Right.
because when somebody's got a chokehold on you, you basically just start blacking out.
Yeah, and it working properly and done well, it can happen very quickly. So
Oh, it's quick.
yeah,
Yeah.
which is why when this dude keeps, and I don't know all the facts of this case and stuff like that, but
Yeah,
like,
I don't. Yeah.
but like, if you keep squirming around and you're moving, in my head, the choke is not on. It's not done right. Like, whether it's me or something else. So like, that's where maybe to play devil's advocate, he should have moved to something else. He should have rolled him on his stomach and done like an arm triangle, or not an arm triangle, but like done an arm hold of some kind. Done something like that. But again, it's so much easier to play devil's advocate from the outside. But in that situation, if you got that choke on and that's what you got, you're fighting for it. I mean, the guy keeps moving, like, you're gonna keep squeezing harder until he stops
Yeah.
moving. And I mean, it's kind of it's kind of ridiculous, but
Well, I mean, that's you got to also too remember when your adrenaline starts flowing. You know, like yeah, I mean, you're in the Marine Corps, you get a certain amount of training to apply towards a confrontational situation, right? We don't know if this guy trained before, after, whatever. That's another story.
exactly.
But But the more you train on the ground and you get the refine the technique, it does happen fast, a lot faster than people think.
Oh yeah.
If it's on, it's on. But there's also other factors in that. Is the guy on drugs?
That's what I
Is
was
he
gonna
so
say.
amped out?
I would like to see the autopsy of why he actually died, like what the actual cause is, because like you'd have to hold someone in a rear naked choke for a significant amount of time to actually kill them. Like you could, I mean, if you hold it for long enough, you could start doing brain damage. You go down that whole route because they're just not getting blood. But for them to like actually die that quickly, there's got to be other factors. Well, now maybe he had a heart attack. Maybe he's on a ton of drugs and he had a heart attack at the
Yeah.
time.
Well,
Like,
the other thing is too is he could have had a blood clot. So even when you're practicing on the ground, you have to be really careful, especially with older athletes that are in there, because as we get older, we do get health problems.
sure,
You could have a blockage somewhere. I mean, you don't even know. So you have to be really safe and sane when you practice that. You don't know if he's living on the street, how much medical help attention is this guy getting? Like,
in New
he's not
York,
doing
probably all of
maintenance.
it.
Maybe, yeah, but I mean, you're not doing maintenance. You're not on blood pressure medicine. You're not on cholesterol medicine. You're not on, that's another subject all the way. But you're not getting tested to know, okay, hey, you might have a blockage, somewhere. The the reduction in blood flow could unleash something that's gonna flow into the heart. I mean, that's
I mean, the way, at least, again, going off of the laws that I know in New Jersey, because that's where I live, I and I feel like this should be everywhere. Like it is, the dude is attacking someone. The onus is not on the defender to worry about that person's life. Like if I have to do what I got to do, and now again, this comes with the caveat of like if I'm sitting there stomping its face into the dirt, different. But in this particular situation, he's trying to restrain this individual from hurting, whether it was him. Again, I don't know the facts, whether it was hurting this Marine or hurting other people, and then he dies. Like, kind of not my problem. Like I didn't do anything in excess that would have warranted like extreme force. Like he was in a chokehold and the guy died. Like that's not really, in this situation, coming from a guy who probably, I don't know if he had friends around, but if I was in that situation, I would think I'm all by myself. So I wouldn't go to the ground, but that's a different story. But like it's just, you can't worry about those types of things when you're in that situation. And there's so many factors to worry about. I'm not thinking, what if this guy dies? I'm thinking, I need to defend myself. So
well,
I
yeah,
gotta do what you gotta
exactly.
do.
So I want to bring up a point though. It's funny that we're talking about this because being a being a striker to my essence and to my core, when you go to grappling school, that's specifically just grappling. Because I wanted to increase my skill set. We have grappling in art, but we don't go to the nth degree of a BJJ school. They call it the gentle art, right? Because the assumption is you can control somebody. But when I look at this and this guy getting in trouble, do you think knocking the guy out would have been a better choice?
Yeah, I mean, because then you could have the whole. We've had conversations at length about the what if game, but
Yeah, I know, but
yeah,
and also too, yes, you can knock the guy out. He could hit his head, and that could be another whole thing of other things.
right.
You know what I'm saying? But if I knock you out, you're done. Maybe he should have just put him to sleep and left it at that. But he was still being responsible by not putting him to sleep, by not knocking him out. You know, he was probably being conscious of the situation and trying to put the right amount, showing the right amount of force against force and what he did. And I think that when it comes down to it, that's probably going to come out that way.
Yeah, that's the thing. I don't know really all the facts, so I have to dig into it and find out more.
I mean, even if we go read the facts, depending upon the source of the facts, you're not going to know. You're going to get several sides of it. We can only go off of what we see as martial artist self-defense practitioners,
Right.
and knowing the ground game, knowing the stand-up game, and knowing how they work in a self-defense situation. But the guy was definitely hitting, so he neutralized the guy from hurting other people. So I mean, and I think that was the major intention. I think he showed it.
And again, anyone who trains knows that a rear naked choke is not an excessive amount of force whatsoever. Like that's being kind, really. I mean, most chokes are being kind. Some of them do suck. Don't get me wrong, but they're really not meant to hurt someone in that aspect.
Right.
So it's I'd be like, it's not his problem. But
Well, I mean, pain compliance, is short of striking somebody or short of choking somebody,
right.
or you know what I'm saying?
hmm
So putting him in a wrist lock, cop lock, whatever, but you're not in the best of situations sometimes when you do that.
Is there a video out there of this, like from
There is
front
a
to
video.
back, off the
there's
front?
there's definitely, I've seen videos of it, because it definitely, you have to remember, it's in the subway, so it's in a very small confined area with seats on both sides.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been in a fight in the bus. I mean, it's easy to get bowled over, knocked into a seat, bent over. I mean, it's not easy.
Yeah, I mean that's something we could talk about too, is like different areas for fight, like different spaces,
Your
because that's
footwork's limited.
exactly.
Yeah. I mean, we were always trained. We were always told, "Hey, go do your forms in the subway platform. Go do your defense maneuvers and Kempo techniques in a phone booth. In that small an area, or a bathroom. There's and one of the Bourne movies was really cool, because I'm seeing all this Kempo stuff coming out because they're fighting in a bathroom. And I'm like, that is just sick, because you know what? That's how it's going to come down. It's going to be nasty, dirty.
Yeah, there's so many hard points in a bathroom. It's all tile, it's all porcelain, it's all metal, whatever that stuff's made, whether it's steel or aluminum piping
Yeah.
and stuff like that. I mean, it's all hard. So no matter if you fall, get thrown, or get shoved into something, I mean, it's not like a dining room where there's not a lot of stuff. There's just hard places everywhere in there, and that's probably where most people are going to would be confined spaces like that. Would be a place where people would go after people.